Hey, welcome to the Platinum Pinfall. One, two, three quick stories about wrestling. I'm going to go ahead and get to it. I still have to put in my Dynamite report and my NXT report, but I was inspired by things today. So I thought I would address them. The first one is... I'll read it for you here. So William Huckabee, guy involved in Feud of the Year last year, who a lot of guys listen to and often has very controversial things to say, sometimes very intelligent things to say, but sometimes he says incredibly stupid fucking shit like this. Am I the only person who thinks AEW signing Sting is stupid? Yeah. That the spot he now feels should have went to someone who's been killing it on the indies, putting in the windshield time, and has honed his or her craft to the point where they are ready for the national stage. I would have popped for Cahagas, Chance Prophet, Michael Judas. Way to cover as big a gambit as possible politically. I like it. There are over a dozen guys I recognize as my vets/mentors who should be in that spot. Instead, we get another legend who can only work limited dates, won't elevate younger talent, and will suck up the payroll screen time. Ugh. Wrestling. By the way, if you put dots in the middle, you use 3. If you end a sentence, you use 4. That is an ellipse. It's the dumbest fucking thing I've read. And all the wrestlers or wrestling people or people who think they're knowledgeable at wrestling who clicked heart and fucking like, you're a fucking idiot too. One, is there a group that is giving more guys a shot than AEW right now? There's a fucking whole show dedicated to that shit, first of all. So Chance Prophet comes out with that entrance. How does it work? No. Does he sell the most shirts in 24 hours like fucking Sting did? No. Does he have everybody talking about it? No. Can they use Chance Prophet? Sure. I can't even wrap my mind around it. When someone who's supposedly a smart wrestling person would begin to think this way. If having guys who are quote unquote killing it on the indies prove to be some kind of huge draw in and of itself, then you wouldn't have to check every other week whether Ring of Honor was still doing shows. Right or wrong. I don't know what to say about a time when Sting comes out. Most people are crazy pumped and excited. And people in the wrestling business have to find ways to somehow make it a negative thing. God damn. I gotta say, Huckabee writing this shit, and then people acting like, some people trying to act like this makes any fucking sense at all. Now, if it turns out this, I was just saying something to be controversial. Oh, congratulations. You put over the gimmick that you're a fucking moron. Next story. Pat Patterson. I'm calling this part the complicated legacy of Pat Patterson. As a good friend of mine says, 2 things can be true. And Pat Patterson, was he a great wrestling talent, an innovative guy, a guy who was supposedly one of the best finish guys in the history of wrestling, coming up with finishes, came up with stuff like the Royal Rumble, obviously a right-hand man to Vince McMahon for years and years and years, fucking jumped on the grenade during the fucking federal trial, fell on his fucking sword to save the McMahons, loyal as all get out. Yes, all that's true. Is he also the guy who's accused of sexually molesting somebody, forcing them into sexual acts for favors, and then got that lawsuit dropped in exchange for fucking money given to him by the WWF? Yes. Is he a guy who coerced people over the years into sexual favors for a push? Likely. Both of those things are likely true. So The legacy is complicated, and a number of people have expressed to me, like, I just don't know how to feel about this. And people are taking sides, either ignoring one thing or the other. How about just being fucking true? He's a guy who was incredibly loyal to the McMahons, a guy who contributed mightily to the wrestling business, a guy that put up with being gay in an activity where that wasn't always the coolest thing to be, though certainly cooler in pro wrestling than it would have been in quote unquote legitimate sports, but still. And the last guy who put out a WWE book that was actually worth a shit. His book was actually pretty good. Yeah. And is he a guy who abused his position? Yes. And I hate to break it to you, that applies to most people in wrestling, especially people of a certain age. And how are you going to deal with that question when other people pass? It's worth noting. So the answer is yes, there's a very complicated legacy by Pat Patterson. Great contributions to the pro wrestling business. Everybody from The Rock on down seems to praise Patterson as a guy that was really great. Lots of people praising him as a guy who was really nice. All that can be true. Does it mean that he never abused the position? Does it mean that he didn't do whatever it took with the McMahons, etc., etc., etc.? It's tough, but it's the truth. Did you notice how much time they devoted to Pat Patterson? A whole fucking lot on NXT, right? The McMahons don't know. Now, though the press releases that the McMahons themselves have been doing have been very measured and calculated. Make no mistake about it. Fucking Patterson would do anything for them. And one thing that mob bosses and shit value more than anything, and they say it all the time, and if you look at some of the worst people imaginable, loyalty. It's a word they love throwing around. And in this rare case, it was actually kind of a two-way street between the Pattersons and the McMahons. They kept him on board because times were a little different. I don't think Patterson would have survived the kind of accusations that came out. If they came out now, I think he would have been gone. But back then, they returned his loyalty for loyalty in turn, which to dumb people is the highest order of anything. But it's not. It's just quid pro quo kind of shit, which is, while not on the level of the animals, is definitely not the end all be all of great human traits that people make it out to be. But Pat Patterson, you did some great shit. You did some terrible shit as well. But you're dead. And that's that. And finally, this announcement from Peachstate. And I just thought it was worth noting here. So it says, Peachstate Wrestling Alliance. We come to you sadly with bad news that this Saturday's PWA event in Heflin, Alabama has been postponed due to the possible positive COVID tests on staff. We don't wish to take the risk of putting any of the fans, staff, and talent in jeopardy. The old adage of better safe than sorry certainly applies in this case. We'll be back in 2021, hopefully sooner than later. To anyone who purchased tickets for December 5th, your money will be refunded in full. No one hates this more than us, and we're so sorry this happened. We appreciate your support and patience. Everyone, please stay safe and take care of yourselves and others. There's really not a lot to comment on here, except they're class acts, and I'm sorry that happened, and it really sucks. And it's just a reminder that as much as you can want a thing, it doesn't make it so. And I would caution everybody, every wrestling group, even in states that aren't like Alabama with a tight puckered asshole of a fucking commission, but even in Georgia and Florida, right? If you think we're through this shit with COVID, you're crazy. We are not. And it behooves us to be cautious, because the last thing you fucking want is for there to be no fucking events allowed. So kudos to the groups that have been taking special care. I heard at the AWE show, for example, they were trying to make sure people were masked up and all that shit. It is prudent. I'm not going to get into a discussion about the fucking masks things beyond saying it is prudent to show precaution in a public way and in a way that is meaningful. All it can do is help all of us. Anyway, 3 count and we're done. This has been the Platinum Pinfall.